Look at this pathetic little creature.
They called me weak. They called me useless. They called me a burden on a race that was supposed to be strong, proud, and unbreakable. My name is Kael, and this is the story of the day I stopped being their shame and became their salvation. I was born into the Draven line, a race of warriors known across the realm for their raw power, their unbreakable bodies, and their ability to bend the very elements to their will. Every child of my bloodline was expected to awaken their power by the age of 10. My brothers awakened fire. My cousins awakened storms. My own sister could crack stone with a single punch by the time she was 12. And me? Nothing. Not a spark. Not a whisper of power. Just a boy with tired eyes and empty hands. They called me the Hollow One. My own father could barely look at me during the naming ceremonies. My mother would just squeeze my shoulder and whisper, "It will come, Kael. It will come." But it never did. Not for 6 long years. I trained anyway. While the others rested on their gifts, I trained until my knuckles bled. I ran until my lungs burned. I studied every scroll in the archive on strategy, on the old ways, on things that didn't require power, only will. But no one noticed. No one cared. To them, a warrior without power was no warrior at all. By the time I was 16, the elders had already decided my fate. I would not be sent to the front lines. I would not be trusted with a blade in real battle. I was assigned to the healer's tent, not as a healer, but as someone who fetches water and carries bandages. A servant in armor. That was my role. That was my worth in their eyes. I remember the day the Ashvale scouts returned pale-faced and screaming. The old enemy had returned, the Ashvale, the ancient shadow-blooded horde that our ancestors had sealed away 3 centuries ago behind the threshold gate. The seal was breaking, and it was breaking fast. Every strong warrior in our race was called. My father, my brothers, my sister, all of them marched toward the threshold with their heads high, believing, as they always had, that Draven strength could never fail. I wasn't called. I wasn't needed. I was left behind with the elders, the children, and the wounded. For 3 days we waited. On the 4th day, only a handful of warriors returned, broken, bleeding, and hollow-eyed. My father was among them, barely alive. He grabbed my collar with the last of his strength and said words I will never forget. "Kael, the gate has fallen. Everyone is gone. The strongest of our race gone. Swallowed by shadow." And the Ashvale horde was now marching toward our home, toward the last of our people. The elderly, the children, the wounded, and me, the Hollow One. Panic spread like wildfire. People screamed. People ran. There was no army left. There was no plan. There was only fear. And in that moment, something inside me, something that had been silent for 16 years, finally spoke. I don't know how to explain what happened next except to say that my emptiness was never truly empty. While everyone else awakened power from the outside, fire, stone, storm, mine had been buried deep within, waiting for the exact moment I would need it most. As I stood before the trembling survivors of my race, something ancient stirred in my blood. A power not of destruction, but of binding. The same power the first Dravens used to seal the Ashvale 300 years ago. A power so old, so forbidden, that even the elders had forgotten it existed. My hands began to glow with a silver-white light. Symbols I had never seen before, yet somehow understood, burned themselves onto my skin. The elders stared at me in disbelief. The same people who called me hollow now looked at me like I was something out of legend. There was no time to explain. The horde was already at the tree line. I ran toward the front, alone. Behind me, I heard the elders screaming for me to stop, that I would die, that I was still just the weak one. I didn't listen. For the first time in my life, their words didn't matter. The Ashvale horde crashed through the forest like a wave of living shadow, hundreds of them, led by a creature easily 3 times my size, the Ashvale warlord, the same beast that had slaughtered my father's entire battalion. I stood alone between that horde and everyone I had ever loved. The first wave hit me like a hammer. I was thrown back, my ribs cracking, blood filling my mouth, Every humiliation of my life flashed before my eyes in that moment. The naming ceremonies where I stood empty-handed, the whispered insults, the disappointed look on my father's face, the years of being invisible. And for the first time, instead of breaking me, those memories fed the fire building inside me. I rose to my feet. The silver light around my hands grew brighter, spreading up my arms, wrapping around my chest like armor made of pure will. I didn't have fire. I didn't have storms. I didn't have the strength to crack stone. But I had something none of them ever had, the power to bind, to seal, to end things that should never have existed. I drove forward into the horde, weaving between attacks using every technique I had secretly trained for 6 long years. Techniques the gifted warriors never bothered to learn because they never needed skill, only power. But skill was all I ever had, and now it was joined by something greater. When the Ashvale warlord finally faced me directly, it laughed, a horrible, echoing sound. You, the hollow one, you are what they send to stop me. I didn't answer with words. I answered by driving both palms into the ground, releasing every ounce of the sealing power that had been sleeping inside me since birth. Silver light exploded outward, wrapping around the warlord, around the horde, around the very air itself. Ancient chains of light, the same ones our ancestors used centuries ago, rose from the earth and wrapped around every shadow-blooded creature in sight. The warlord roared, thrashing against the chains, but it was too late. The binding was absolute. Inch by inch, the horde was dragged backward, back through the broken threshold, back into the darkness they came from. And with one final surge of power that nearly tore my body apart, I sealed the gate, this time forever. Silence fell over the battlefield. I collapsed to my knees, smoke rising from my skin, blood dripping from my nose, but alive. Behind me, I heard footsteps. The elders, the survivors, the very people who had called me hollow for 16 years, now standing frozen, staring at me in complete shock. No one said the word weak that day. No one ever said it again. My father, still recovering from his wounds, was carried to the front of the crowd. He looked at me, not with disappointment this time, but with something I had waited my entire life to see. Pride. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. His eyes said enough. The elders who once denied me a place on the battlefield were the first to kneel. Not because tradition demanded it, but because, for the first time, they understood that strength was never about how loud your power roared. It was about what remained when everything else had fallen silent. They called me weak for 16 years. It took one day, one battle, and one forgotten power to remind them that the quietest flame is often the one that refuses to go out. I am Kael, once called hollow, once called the burden of my bloodline. Today they call me the sealer of the threshold, the one who stood alone when everyone else had fallen, and the one who saved an entire race not with the power they expected, but with the power they never saw coming. And somewhere, deep beneath the earth, behind a gate sealed once more by silver chains, the darkness waits. Because ancient enemies never truly disappear. They only wait for the next generation to forget. But this time I'll be ready. This time we all will be.